we thought that, oh, there's the recording. Happy New Year once again, everyone. I hope your 2022 is off to a great start. Tracy and I talked last fall about what we could do with native plants and how could we promote that in a member event. And I thought to myself, you know what? Every month there is some beautiful native plant blooming. And I did a lot of research on this when I was turning my yard of sand and seashells here in Marina, California, into a native landscape. And so I am here today, not only as your immediate past president of the board of directors, but also as a native plant advocate, enthusiast, and hobbyist. I am not an expert. I am merely sharing what I have discovered and what has worked for me. And I'm going to compare flowers that we see in the reserve different times of the year with flowers that have also worked in my yard. So native, that is. So my hope is that if you are looking to plant natives in your garden or landscape to make your own little native habitat, that this will be a help to you. Or you can look for these different flowers around the reserve each month. Here we go. And I will have time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So January, here we are in January right now. And I love to point out this particular species of plant. I know that you know what this is. This is Manzanita. And there are lots and lots of types of Manzanita. What I love about Manzanita is not only the flowers that they show us right now. In fact, the picture on the left was taken just a couple weeks ago here in Marina. Not only do they flower in winter, but they have just this amazing red bark that has not only great texture, but great color. And so one thing that you'll notice throughout the presentation today is that, yes, I will be highlighting flowers, absolutely. But I'm also going to be highlighting the color of the foliage, the contrasts of the foliage, the fruit, the seeds, and the bark, because all of that together makes for a really dynamic landscape. Okay, so here you can see the silvery green leaves of the Manzanita. You can see the bark of the Manzanita, and it's a great time to be watching Manzanita. Look for it in your neighborhood because a lot of cities are now planting it in medians and in towns. So that's really wonderful. So that's a January favorite. This is another January favorite of mine. This is called Silk Tassel. Its scientific name is Garrya elliptica, and it's got these really interesting catkins draping down this time of year, and only the male plants have that, and these catkins are the flowers, and it just makes for a very dramatic look. I have a male plant in my yard. It's a very slow grower, so don't expect a whole lot anytime soon. I planted it probably 8 years ago, and I'm still taller than it. So it's a very slow grower. But as you can see, a beautiful and dramatic plant for this time of year when we don't see a lot of blooms. And again, that was Silk Tassel, Garrya elliptica. This is Bladder Pod. And it's such an interesting plant, also blooming this time of year. In fact, the one in my backyard looks just like the picture on the left, really gorgeous. And hummingbirds love it. There's always a flurry of activity. This bladder pod is an interesting plant because unlike the Garrya that grows up, this kind of grows out and it has a bit of a draping look to it. It also has a really interesting smell. I think of it as kind of industrial, kind of like, oh, this is where I need my notes, kind of like the aroma from the railroad tie wood. I know you know what that is. It's on the tip of my tongue. So we'll have to come back to that, but if you can put it in the chat box, go for it. It has that kind of synthetic smell. Our next flower, we're going to leave Bladder Pod behind. The next, oh, let's see what the chat came up. Creosote, thank you. I appreciate that. This next flower is chocolate fritillaria. So just in time for Valentine's Day in February. This is a beauty that you will find in the reserve. It's not one that I have in my yard, so I definitely need to go to the reserve to see this, but it is just gorgeous. And on the right, if you can see the picture on the right with the fingernails, you can see how absolutely tiny it is. So it's just a tiny and magnificent lily. Sometimes it's called chocolate lily. So that is the chocolate fritillaria. Here we go. Also in February, this is a really interesting plant in that it has so many textures and colors. This is a type of gooseberry from the ribes family. And the picture on the left was taken at the end of February last year in the reserve. It's got all kinds of pricklies on it. And a beautiful flower as well. So if you're looking for this type of flower to decorate your yard, just be careful of the thorns, but it is a beauty. And I found this on my way up to, let's see, it was the ADA approved trail from the bathroom up the pathway to China Beach is where I found this. So that's where you can find it in the reserve. Gooseberry was definitely an important plant for the Ohlone, and they had many different purposes for it, including food. By the way, a lot of the information that I'm sharing with you today is in this amazing book by Art Muto. It is called Wildflowers of Point Lobos State Reserve. I bought this at the information station within Point Lobos, and it is just a fabulous little reference book that will tell you, it's organized by color, also name, common name and scientific name, and it tells you the blooms, when the blooms are out for a particular plant, as well as other common names the plant may go by, and how the Ohlone and indigenous peoples of this area use the plant and still do. So really wonderful book by Art Muto. If you're with us today, Art, thank you. And if you are with us, I may be directing some questions to you at the end here. But continuing on with February, we are looking at a beautiful paintbrush right now, Monterey paintbrush, also known as Indian paintbrush, but I'm going to go with Monterey paintbrush. And this is just a beauty. You can see a close-up on the right. The actual flower is a tiny little piece of white that comes out of that brilliant orange. And you can just see some of those white tips coming out on the left. If you look at the top, you'll see like a little white toothpick coming out of the flower, out of the plant, and that is the actual flower. So this is a beauty, and it mixes so well with other colors. So it's nice to see this brilliance this time of year. Okay, moving on to March. March is my birthday month, and I love spending my birthday in the reserve. And when I say reserve, I mean, of course, the Point Lobos State Natural Reserve. What other reserve could I be talking about today? And one reason I love being in the reserve on my birthday is because the ceanothus, or California lilac, is just a sea of periwinkle blooms. It's just wonderful. So on the right, you're seeing a close-up of the ceanothus. On the left, you're seeing a February shot where the blooms are just starting out. And you'll see this, it's often referred to as blue blossom at the reserve. And I'm going to give this particular flower, my favorite, 2 slides. I have a lot of ceanothus in my yard. It can be, oh, I forgot to mention with Manzanita, it can be, both plants can be ground covers, shrubs, and trees. So if you're looking for ground covers, ceanothus and Manzanita, you can find them as a ground cover, a shrub, and a tree. So on the left, what you're seeing is a beautiful Ray Hartman ceanothus tree, really wonderful and has gotten huge. It's probably 12 to 15 feet high and about the same width, actually. The middle picture under the mermaid, if you look closely, you'll see Carmel creeper, which is a nice ground cover ceanothus, and it's mixed in with a pretty salvia that has silvery green leaves. And I love that contrast of the dark green leaves of the ceanothus and the silvery leaves of the salvia. On the right, I'm actually hiking with my dog Jumbo. He's ahead in black. You can just see, I think, his back end. He's always scouting ahead of me. And that's a beautiful ceanothus that is called ceanothus. It's not rigitata, I think it's rigidus, Ceanothus rigidus. That's another beauty here in Marina. And so you'll find ceanothus or California lilac in a lot of different places, great for landscaping. And interestingly enough, although it usually blooms in late winter, early spring, my ceanothus have gone through a second bloom. I don't know whether to be worried about that. They normally don't go through a second bloom, but mine have been blooming since the fall. And I wonder if it's because of the early rains that we got in October. So I've been blessed with two seasons of blooms with my ceanothus. We'll see if they come back again. All right. Also in March, you will find purple owl's clover. This is a little beauty that has a really wide range. And once again, you'll notice the little white parts. And that's the actual flower of the plant. And so for a lot of plants, if you look closely, you'll see that there's always something, or there can be something tiny inside of what you think is the whole flower. Just a brilliant color. And you'll see this paired with other plants or in a field as, or a meadow as pictured here in the middle and on the right. Okay, also in March, more blue, and I love the blue flowers, hence my my hat and my felted wool flower scarf. How often do I get to wear this? Not very often, which is why I'm wearing it for you today. Blue flowers are often pollinated by bees. Bees are really attracted to the blues and purples. Hummingbirds are more so attracted to the reds and the oranges and the pinks. So if you're looking to have different types of animals in your native habitat, you can plant by color to attract the various different types of pollinators. Here you're looking at baby blue eyes. And this is just, it's like finding an Easter egg. It's so fun to find these because sometimes they are in the middle of a lot of grasses and leaves and there's not a lot happening, but then you see this beautiful little blue flower and it's really magical. It's about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch across and really fun to find. Again, that's baby blue eyes. And then, of course, jumping into April here, again, we've got sky lupin. Sky lupin is a beauty, and I love the contrast with not only the poppies, but you can see that purple owl's clover on the right in the bottom of the photo. Lupin is part of the pea family. And it has a really vast range throughout California. I was surprised to see how far up and down it goes in the state and also inland. Really interesting plant, great colors. Sometimes you'll find them in yellow. And of course, this is the West Coast version, sky lupin. And then would spring ever be spring without poppies? Never. Poppies are so fun. They are just, you know, flowers just, I think, there's a quote out there that say, let's see, the planet laughs in flowers or the world laughs in flowers. And I see this in these pictures. They just have such a beauty and smile right on them. What you'll notice on the left is that the poppy is solid orange. And yet, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that the poppy is bicolored. It's got two colors. It's got yellow and it's got orange. The difference is that the poppy on the left, although still a California poppy, is an inland valley poppy. It's solid in color, it's tall, and it's usually bigger than what you'll see on the right. On the right, that is a coastal California poppy and beautifully adapted for the coast because it actually grows smaller and closer to the ground so that it can deal with the winds and the different types of weather that we get here on the coast. So you'll find both here, but the real true one for the coastal area is the bicolor up on the right. And then of course you can see the inland valleys decorated with poppies as well. Just beautiful. Ah, more blue. Love the Douglas iris. And of course the reserve is known for these beauties. They come in actually quite a few different hues. I believe the ones in the reserve are darker than this. I didn't have any really good close-ups, so these are not from the reserve. In fact, a lot of my pictures today are from calscape.org. So if you're looking for a great resource, calscape.org will not only show you all the different native plants that you could possibly find in California, but also if you plug in your city or zip code, it will show you which native plants are indigenous to that particular area. And I wish I had known this when I was planting my yard, because that's really important. You wanna just go with the flow in Mother Nature and plant what should normally be here if you want to go the native route. So calscape.org, great resource. Tidy tips, love the tidy tips. Look how fun they are. And just not only a brilliant splash of color, but a really good food source for pollinators. And very fun to find on the smaller side, but usually you'll see many growing together as you can see on the right. So these are tidy tips, T-I-D, D as in dog, Y. T-I-P, P as in Paul, S, tidy tips. Also in May, the beautiful California rose. Yeah, we do. We have a native California rose, actually a few of them. This is the Rosa californica, I believe. And the picture in the middle is one that I took at the reserve. You'll see the flowers and the buds, of course. And there's a few other natives in there too. There is some beautiful California sagebrush, which is kind of that fluffy green colored plant that I'll be showing you more of later. And then on the left, poison oak. Poison oak is also a native, and the reserve, I'm going to say, manages the poison oak. And the reason for that is because the birds and the animals use it for food and shelter. It's actually a really important native plant for the local wildlife. And so the reserve does an excellent job of managing it. So we can all share the reserve and walk through pathways without having to interact with with the poison oak. May. What would May be without monkey flower? Of course, it's got a longer flowering season than just May, but this is also known as bush monkey or just monkey flower. Some people call it sticky monkey flower, but I think that might be a different species. Just a beautiful apricot colored flower. And perhaps you can see the monkey face in the flower when you look closely. I don't necessarily see it, but maybe you will, and that would be great. Tell me if you do. Comes in a lot of different colors, actually, and what that means is that you can get many different cultivars of it at a nursery. There's even one out there called the jelly bean monkey flower, which is a wonderful color. They come in pinks and maroons and whites and oranges, and as you can see, this apricot one is a native, so monkey flower or bush monkey. All right. This one is fun. It is called Dudlia, and the reserve has two types. And And you can see that it loves to grow along the coastal edges. And I'll show you more pictures in just a moment. But this is a succulent type of plant, really a beauty. It does flower, as you can see on the left. And you can see some of those flowers actually rising from the bottom of the picture on the right. And that the flowers are growing towards the sand and the water. It looks like there's some Monterey paintbrush in there as well. And I love this so much that I wanted to dedicate 2 slides to it. So you can see the Dudlia just hanging down over the rocks in the reserve. And I just love that picture because that's where I actually do see a face. I don't see a face in the monkey flower, but I do see a face in that rock. Just a beautiful little cliff area. And off to the right is the actual area where I took this picture. And if you look really closely in the grassy part of this picture on the lower right, you'll see more of those Dudlia flowers. So it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of flowering going on the left, but on the right there is. And so really fun to find those in the reserve. June. These are one of my absolute favorites. This is the Clarkia plant, and Clarkia comes in so many different colors and shapes and sizes. And at the reserve, you're going to find the wine cup Clarkia, also known as farewell to spring, and that's because they hang around and bloom till the end of spring, which is a wonderful surprise. When other things are going away, they're still going. Wine cup is on the left, and the Clarkia, the elegant Clarkia, is on the right, just magnificent. You'll find that purple elegant Clarkia at the reserve and the wine cup at the reserve. On the right is a cultivar of the elegant Clarkia that I have in my yard, meaning I bought it from a nursery. And I don't believe that is the true color. I think as a cultivar, it's been modified a little bit. But again, the colors are just amazing, but you can find a lot of different colors that are native. And so this is just a gem. The petals, if you've ever encountered one, almost look like crepe paper, very thin, very delicate, just a beautiful, beautiful plant. And as I mentioned, one of my absolute favorites. I always look forward to seeing these towards the end of spring. All right, we've got Yarrow. Yarrow is just a wonderful, the flowers themselves are just a wonderful landing strip for butterflies. And you can see that in the picture on the left. The reserve has 2 types of yarrow. It has the golden yarrow as well as the common yarrow. The golden yarrow is the yellow, and the common yarrow is the white, and that you can see the white really nicely in the picture on the right. It mixes in nicely with other flowers. You can see bird rock off in the distance there. And I believe this picture was taken, I believe it was a June member walk with Chuck Bancroft a couple years ago. So this is always a nice flower to encounter and a pretty dependable bloomer. It will spread very nicely, and you really, it's an easy one if you're looking for easy. It's a very easy native to take care of. July, we are into July, and I wanted to celebrate July with pink, white, and purple. On the right, you'll see my garden showing the white yarrow, the common yarrow, the rosy buckwheat, and also a salvia in the back where you'll see the purple. And I just had to put the flag right there because I almost had the colors right. But buckwheat is a wonderful native, comes in many, many different colors. At the reserve, you'll find the Dune buckwheat. And in fact, the picture in the middle up top was taken at Point Lobos by Ashley Albright, and I found it on Calscape.org. So that's kind of fun. The pictures underneath are actually not from the reserve, but that one in the middle up top is. And these are really important plants for the pollinators who will spend so much time around these. And you'll see a lot of bees. And I just want to allay any fears that you might have, because bees, when they are around these native plants, they are not interested in bothering you. They are, very focused on feeding and pollinating. And I never worry about the bees that I see in my garden, because I know they're too busy with the natives. Okay, gum plants. This is a fun one, and it gets its name from that stickiness that it has as the flower is opening up. And you can see that stickiness on the left, as well as the upper right, the yellow flower that's just about to open. You can see some of that glistening gummy part. This is another really great bloomer. Not a late bloomer. It's a good bloomer, and it's a reliable bloomer. And you'll see this in lots of places around the reserve. So once again, this is called gum plant or gum flower. You can see lots of ants inside the biggest flower on the screen. July is a time to celebrate salvias. So many salvias are usually in bloom in July. And I believe that the reserve has black sage or black salvia. So salvias and sages are essentially the same thing. Beautiful flowers. Again, pollinators love them. And I will promise you that the more natives you put in your yard, the more critters you're going to see. Critters on the ground, critters flying, critters with feathers, critters with scales, critters with fur. You're just going to see so much more wildlife. And I turned our very boring yard with kikuyu grass into a native landscape, and luckily got to enjoy being on a garden tour, just showing how you can turn a lawn, a boring lawn, into a native habitat. This is Coast Morning Glory, just a beauty. It's got the beautiful bicolors, the pink and the white. Sometimes they're all white, but a great climber if you need something to climb up a gate or a fence or a trellis, and also a really reliable bloomer. And when I say blooming, a lot of these plants will bloom for several months, but the reason I put them in each month of the year is so that you could see that, yes, indeed, there is native color in any given month of the year. And this is a great example of one. Beach primrose or dune primrose. This is a lovely little plant that is just phenomenal, the way that it spreads. You can see in the lower left that it's got this beautiful radial outgrowth. And then from that radial outgrowth, you've got more branches coming out that will then form their own radial outgrowth. And then it's got beautiful little bright yellow flowers. So this grows just about anywhere. If you have sand for soil like I do, it does perfectly in it. And I really do have sand for soil. It's got seashells and everything. We're a mile inland, but it's a 10,000-year-old sand dune. And I just didn't want to fight Mother Nature when it came to putting plants in. So this is a very reliable one if you're close to the coast. And I'm sorry I didn't put a flower in with that one. I think I was so excited about the way the plant was growing, I forgot to put a flower. Here's another favorite. This is, in September, when a lot of the plants are kind of petering out because it's so hot, this Hummingbird Fuchsia just takes off. And it is so fun to see. The hummers go nuts over it. This is usually where I see the most hummingbird activity in my yard. And of course, they're territorial. So there's like little hummer battles going on. Great plant in that it's got beautiful silver foliage and just firecracker orange flowers. And it reseeds quite nicely. meaning the flowers turn into what looks like almost a fluffy little seed, and it just throws those seeds all over the yard. So I've probably got dozens of these plants from just one plant. So again, Hummingbird Fuchsia, great addition to any landscape. September, as I mentioned, things are starting to peter out. And what you're looking at here is a picture of Carmel River State Beach in September. You can see that the buckwheat on the right is still going. That Dune buckwheat is still blooming. And on the left, you can see that it's actually starting to go to seed. And you'll see this a lot inside of the reserve. But as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, even the seeds look beautiful and look dynamic in a landscape, giving a landscape different colors and textures. And of course, those are important food items for different animals and birds. This picture actually represents a really important restoration project that California State Park volunteers have worked very hard on to remove the ice plant. And you can see a big mound of ice plant in the back that has been pulled and is drying out, so we can take it away because that's an invasive. And what I love about this picture is that the natives have just really taken over. There's the buckwheat in the foreground. Off on the right, if you look closely, you're going to see that coastal morning glory. I see some different poppies scattered about, and also some yellow lizard tail. So really wonderful to see all that layering of flowers. Carmel River State Beach. Okay, Seaside Daisy. This is a fun one. I bet I need to check my time here, making sure I leave time for your questions here. Seaside Daisy, very reliable, an excellent spreader. That middle picture was one 4-inch plant that I put in a median, and look what it did. Oh my goodness, just crazy. And on the right, you'll see that it's draping over onto my driveway. It does a beautiful job of kind of growing out and draping. Again, one little 4-inch plant, and has done beautifully. One of the reasons it's looking beautiful is because I did put in a drip irrigation system. And that's important. You know, natives, when you do plant them, in order to get established, they do need regular watering the first year. However, after that, you don't have to give them water. I choose to because they just look better and you get more flowers. And I think it's just healthier for the plant. So I cheat a little bit, but it's just a drip irrigation system, which is a really good way to water your plants without overwatering. On the left, you'll see some Seaside Daisy at the reserve. Right on the coastal bluff. It looks like there's some Monterey paintbrush, and also some Dudlia blooms there, along with maybe some California sagebrush in the back. Again, beautiful layering. All right, let's talk food. In October, if you're looking for color in your garden, you can also find something to eat. These are California grapes. Also known as Rogers red grapes. This is California Bittis, I believe is the scientific name, California Bittis. And look at the beautiful stages it goes through. You've got the really bright chartreuse green leaves of spring. Then you've got the flowers that just kind of flow down on the left. Flowers that then turn into yummy grapes, and they absolutely are edible. And then in the fall, the leaves turn this absolutely beautiful, brilliant red color. And so if you're an East Coaster like me and you want that fall foliage, this is a great one to turn to. November, this again is Carmel River State Beach. This is an area, again, where restoration is happening. And what I'm highlighting here is the lizard tail, which is the yellow flower that you can see, although there's a lot more going on in this picture. The lizard tail is a super reliable bloomer and often a repeat bloomer. In fact, I've got lizard tail blooming in my yard right now. It is related to yarrow. And just a wonderful plant for pollinators. Again, easy to land on like yarrow. And it's mixed in on the left with, it looks like some Dune buckwheat up front, some Seaside Daisies to the right, and some California sagebrush behind that. So I just love how these native communities come together. Also in November, you can find common asters in bloom, and they bloom for quite a long time. There are a lot of different types of California asters. This is the common aster that you will find certainly at the reserve. And as you can see, it is food for all kinds of moths and butterflies, which is always a treat to see. So I enjoyed finding these pictures for you. December, I've mentioned California sagebrush a lot, and so now I'm finally talking about it. This is a really interesting plant for a lot of reasons. It's visual beauty, it's sensory beauty in terms of smell, but also touch, and you can see that it has kind of a fluffy appearance. The flower is on the right, and it will bloom through to December. So it has a nice flowering range. And if you just gently run your hand along a stem without pulling it off, and then smell it, you'll smell wonderful sagebrush. So this is a really neat kind of sensory plant. And it really adds to a garden as a filler. But this one definitely needs water. It will dry out and not look great if it doesn't get water. And you'll see that at the reserve. You'll see a lot of green and also a lot of brown. But if you give it that water, it'll stay green like in the middle. And then last but not least, we have Christmas berry. Christmas berry actually goes by many different names. Toyon is one that you'll find at the nurseries. Holiday berry, California berry. This is a wonderful plant to have in your yard because it does offer these berries to you in December. You can cut off the branches and use them for holiday decorating. I believe the berries are edible, but they're very, very acidic. And in fact, they are edible, just very acidic. So best not to eat them raw, cook them instead, or just leave them for the birds because they are definitely an important food source for birds. And again, this is California berry or holiday berry, and the scientific name is Toyon. And so that is my my little trip through the calendar with different types of flowering natives. The native plant nurseries that I have most often frequented are listed on this slide. So feel free to grab a picture with your cell phone or listen to the recording. Some of these places, you know, with COVID, like the last one, the Me Earth annual plant sale, I don't know when that will happen again, but usually they have it around Earth Day, and that is an excellent plant sale locally. But as you can see, there are all kinds of places that you can check out. So I hope you don't have a difficult time finding them. But sometimes it's fun looking for them and trying out different nurseries. I always enjoy just walking around. And then acknowledgements, oh my goodness, so many acknowledgements. When we bought this house in Marina in 2009, I took a couple years to take as many local classes as I could. And so what you're seeing here is either an organization that offered a class that I took, or it's a resource that I used to get information. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm not an expert. I'm not. In fact, any of you who are out there, I'm sure caught many mistakes on my behalf or mispronunciations. Yeah, I'm definitely a hobbyist and an enthusiast. And I just wanted to share what I have learned because it's been a really fun journey to see the landscape that I have really evolved from, as I mentioned, invasive kikuyu grass to a native landscape. That's my front yard on the left, some beautiful hummingbird sage with some beechwort or Dune wort on the right. That's a really beautiful plant too, with the silver foliage. And again, love that contrast between the silver and the green. Sometimes you don't even need flowers because that contrast can be just enough to be visually beautiful. I enjoyed a lot of local classes and earned my Monterey Bay Friendly Landscape certification. And a great book for all kinds of gardening is the Golden Gate Gardening Book, which you can see Tika, my dog, and I are reading on the right. And so with that, I would love to take any questions that you have. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and interest this afternoon.
For all the more. Thank you, Karin. It was fabulous. If anyone doesn't mind, I'm going to start off. I do have a question. The hummingbird fuchsia is different than the hummingbird sage.
Yes, it is. The hummingbird sage that you're seeing on the left will bloom in late winter, early spring. And so I expect to see that looking really good next month and March. If I could do it again, I would plant it in an area that gives it a little more shade. It gets afternoon sun, and that might be too much for it. So I've learned a lot of lessons, and happy to share the lessons that I've learned. But it is a beauty, and the hummingbirds love it. The hummingbird fuchsia is a completely different plant, and that will be your bloomer in the fall. So when everything else is petering out, the California fuchsia will bloom in the fall.
Thank you. It's beautiful. We had Susan had a question a little bit earlier on. Does fritillaria grow in shade?
You know what? I don't have fritillaria myself in my own garden, but I can look it up really quickly in our book to see what type. Actually, this book won't tell me. Art Muto's book won't tell me what kind of habitat it needs. I would check out none other than calscape.org to see what its growing needs are. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. A great question, though. Thank you.
And then Gwen said she's been seeing a lot of the calla lilies blooming in Garrapatta when they visited in May. Are those native? It's a very good question, Gwen.
I don't believe they are. They certainly grow really well here, but I don't think they are. And if anyone would like to correct me, please do. You know, some of these plants are not natives, but they're drought tolerant, so that can be really good too. What I will tell you is that pollinators prefer natives 4-to-1. So if you're looking for something that really feeds your wildlife habitat and shelters your wildlife habitat, then plant the natives, because the local critters are going to choose that 4-to-1 over something that's not native.
Interesting.
Any other questions?
Let's see.
It's been a fun journey. You know, we have to think about critters that perhaps we don't want in our yards, like deer or gopher. Deer and gophers do not like Douglas iris. So if you're looking for something that is somewhat safe from those animals, the Douglas iris is a great bet. And of course that will spread, that mound will spread. As a last resort, you could use netting over your plants, but just be really careful, because with a lot of netting, the adorable Western fence lizard can get caught. And so you just want to make sure that it's a lizard friendly netting, because they get caught and then they can't get out, and it's sad. And then gophers, you know, gophers are a rodent, and it's important to, you know, manage the herd. If you need some information on that, I can help you. I learned how to manage the herd in my Green Gardener class. I can tell you that gophers are very territorial. I have one in my backyard right now. It's kind of go-forgeddon back there right now. And I just haven't been able to properly manage it. But I will probably do that after this class.
That's wonderful.
Anything else? All right.
If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to speak up or just throw it in the chat. And if you think of it later, sometimes I'm great for that. I as soon as something completes, then I think of my questions. So if anyone does that, please either send me a message, or if you have Karin's email, you can send it directly to her. But if you don't, send it to me and I'll forward it on to her, and we'll see what we can do to all gather information together. It's such a fun topic, and like I said, it's just beautiful. Karin, these photos are amazing. There are so many that I have never seen before, but I'm going to be looking for them because maybe it's just that I never noticed them. So I've really enjoyed this.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm really so glad. It's been fun. It's been a great learning opportunity. And like I said earlier, sometimes it's like finding Easter eggs when you go to the reserve. You're not planning to see something, but you do. And then if you have Art's book, you can look up what it is, or you're with your smartphone, you can look up what it is. And Tracy, if you'd like, I can make this presentation into a PDF. I actually have quite a bit of notes for each slide, which I couldn't see today, but that's probably best because we would have run over time. So if anyone would like more information about kind of the range of time that a flower blooms, or the range of area where it grows, or the scientific name, or how the Aloni may have used that plant, all of that is in my notes. So I'm happy to turn that into a PDF if anyone would like a copy of it. Meaning you'll see the picture, the slide with the picture in it, and then the notes underneath.
Great. Yeah, I think a PDF would be wonderful. I really appreciate that. And I think I got everything. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anyone's questions. But I think we got it. So really appreciate everyone being here today. It's always so nice to share information together and learn new things together and just enjoy these beautiful photos.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Tracy. And thank you all so much for supporting the Point Lobos Foundation. It's wonderful to have you in the Point Lobos Foundation family.
I second that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Have fun looking for flowers, everybody.